The moment I saw him lean in, my stomach sank like a stone. Time slowed. The chatter around the restaurant dulled to a murmur. All I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat, hammering against my ribs. And then it happened. His lips pressed against hers. My wife, the woman I had trusted with every fragment of my heart, kissed another man. Right there. In front of everyone. I didn't move at first. Couldn't. It felt like the world had fractured into shards around me. People laughed, clinked glasses, oblivious, while I was trapped in a private hell. Memories of our 10 years together. Our wedding, our tiny apartment filled with mismatched furniture, the late-night talks about nothing and everything, flooded me in an instant. How had it come to this? How had I been blind for so long? I had arrived early that evening, as I always did, expecting a quiet anniversary dinner. I wanted it to be perfect. Just the two of us, a moment to pause life's chaos, to celebrate something that had felt increasingly fragile in recent months. She had insisted we invite a few friends. Just some close friends, she said, her smile too casual, too bright. Something about it now seemed like a warning I had ignored. I sipped my wine, trying to mask the growing unease. The restaurant's warm lighting reflected off the polished silverware, casting soft glimmers across the table. She sat across from me, radiant as always, or so I thought. Her laughter rang out, not at my jokes, but at his. Him, the man I had seen before casually in passing at events, always with a too wide smile and a too familiar look in his eyes. And then the moment. That simple, devastating moment. He leaned in, whispered something I couldn't hear over the sudden roar in my ears, and kissed her. The room seemed to tilt. I felt my hands clench into fists under the table, nails biting into my palms. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my glass across the room. But instead I did something colder, more deliberate. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months, and said the words I had rehearsed in my head 100 times but never believed I could actually say. We're done. She froze. Her eyes widened, and in that frozen second I saw everything, the panic, the shame, the guilt, flash across her face. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The man, sensing something, straightened, confusion written across his features, the flirtatious ease replaced with an awkward tension. We're done, I repeated, louder this time, my voice calm, controlled, carrying an edge sharp enough to cut steel. The simplicity of it, the finality, seemed to hit harder than any scream, any tantrum could have. She looked at me, lips trembling, and finally whispered, Azza. But I didn't let her finish. I didn't need her excuses. I didn't need her apologies. I had spent too many nights awake, piecing together the signs I had ignored. The late nights at the office she claimed were just work, the sudden obsession with fitness classes where she claimed she was just socializing, the unexplained texts that made her jump whenever my name popped up. All of it had led to this one undeniable truth. She had been lying to me. And now, she was doing it with a brazenness that made my blood boil. I stood, my chair scraping the floor, the sound loud enough to draw the attention of nearby tables. Conversations stilled. Forks paused midair. I didn't care. I wasn't there for their judgment. I was there for my closure. Azza, please, it's not what it looks like, she started, her voice pleading. I don't want to hear it, I said, my tone flat, almost mechanical. I saw everything. Right here. Right now. And it's over. Her face fell, and for a fleeting second I saw her old self, the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman I had imagined growing old with. But it was gone. Replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had chosen betrayal over honesty, lust over love. The man looked between us, his bravado faltering. Look, we didn't. We're done, I said again, louder this time, my eyes locking on hers one last time. I didn't need to say his name. His presence was irrelevant. He was just a footnote, a reminder of her deceit. I turned and walked out. Every step felt surreal, like I was moving through someone else's life, someone else's story. Outside, the cool night air hit my face, and I took a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs. The city lights blurred through my tears, but I didn't care. I felt a strange mix of emptiness and clarity, a hollow space where love had once lived but where truth now resided. The drive home was quiet. The roads were slick with recent rain, headlights reflecting off the asphalt. I didn't call anyone. I didn't want to hear the sympathetic tones. The words meant to comfort. Comfort was for people who hadn't been shattered from the inside out. When I got home, the apartment felt alien. Her scent lingered faintly, teasing, cruel. I walked through the rooms, touching objects almost instinctively. The couch where we had argued and laughed, the bedroom where secrets were once shared, the kitchen where we had made countless meals together. Everything was a memory, and yet everything was tainted. I didn't wait for her. She never came home that night. And I didn't call. I didn't want to hear the excuses, the lies. I wanted silence. I wanted the truth to echo in the empty rooms so I could finally confront it fully. Over the next days, the reality of our life together unraveled. I went through her phone, not out of curiosity but necessity. Each message was a needle in my chest. Each photo a reminder of the life I thought we had, the life she had abandoned. The betrayal was methodical, cold, and deliberate. I had loved someone who had already checked out of our marriage months ago. I confronted her once, in a neutral space, a cafe where neither of us had comfort or power. She tried to explain. She cried. She begged. She claimed she never meant for it to happen, that it was a mistake, that she still loved me in some warped, selfish way. But I couldn't hear her. I couldn't unsee the kiss, the way she had chosen him over me in front of everyone, like a cruel exhibition. "I loved you," she said, voice breaking. "I made a mistake, but You made your choice," I said, cutting her off gently but firmly. "And I'm making mine." The process of ending it all was excruciating. Lawyers dividing assets, rewriting life plans we had built together, learning to sleep alone in a bed that once held shared warmth. Friends took sides, some offering support, others judgment. I realized then how much of life was performed for others, how fragile the veneer of happily ever after could be. Yet amidst the heartbreak, a strange clarity emerged. I began to see her not as the woman I had loved, but as a cautionary tale, a lesson in trust and the limits of human perception. I learned to listen to my instincts, to trust my own eyes when the world tried to convince me otherwise. The nights were the hardest. I would wake suddenly, heart hammering, expecting her to be beside me, to reach out, to apologize, to whisper that it was all a nightmare. But it never came. Instead, there was silence, and slowly I began to fill it with my own voice, my own presence, my own healing. Months later, I walked past that restaurant where it had all ended. The same warm lighting, the same clink of glasses, but it no longer held power over me. I had survived, had rebuilt, had reclaimed myself from the wreckage of her betrayal. And though the scar remained raw and permanent, it no longer hurt the same way. Pain had transformed into something else. Wisdom, resilience, the quiet strength of someone who had loved deeply and lost, yet refused to let that loss define him. I didn't need to see her again. I didn't need closure from her. The words I had spoken, simple yet final, had done more than end a marriage. They had given me back my dignity. "We're done." 2 words. No theatrics, no pleas, just truth. And in that truth I found freedom. I drove home, windows down, letting the night air wash over me. For the first time in months I felt light. My life, though altered, was mine again. And in that reclamation I understood the most important lesson. Betrayal, no matter how deep, could not define the limits of love, only the limits of trust. And trust, once broken, could be the catalyst for something stronger, something wholly your own. By the time I reached my apartment, I realized that the man who kissed my wife, the woman who had chosen him, and the life I had imagined, all were now behind me. Ahead was an unknown path, yes, but one I would walk alone, on my terms, with my heart intact, wiser, stronger, and finally free.